Hey man, what's up? This goes out to the big ho 111. I call you by name, but I refuse to. At least not publicly. Just saw your video on elitism, and as usual, it rocked. Just about everything you put out rocks. I wanted to do a bit of a response on it though before I head over to work because I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of what you said, particularly about how it's the enlightened souls who are the ones that really move us and who really know how to guide us, and that it seems that they may have some type of, it would seem that maybe they should have some type of social responsibility to everyone, to try to find some way to help guide society, to guide humanity. And it's the people who are in charge right now who definitely don't deserve that position because they are so out of step, with the way humanity should be going, to put it mildly. However, this is a big however, I find that when you're dealing with the enlightened souls, you find that they have no desire whatsoever to be in a leadership position. Yeah, you'll find a couple of them who don't mind guiding people, like on an individual basis. So, if they find somebody who they feel they need a little bit of advice, or they need a little nudge in a particular direction, they'll help them out. They'll selflessly do that. But as far as wanting to actually be in a position of guiding masses of people in some type of leadership position, you find they have very little desire for that. This seems to be one of the side effects of enlightenment. You may have noticed that the more enlightened a person is, the less of a desire they have to be in any type of leadership position. And in fact, you'll even find less of a desire to even be part of mainstream society. You can look at a lot of older philosophies to see traces of this. Like, let's take Taoism, which is one of the Eastern philosophies which I mostly ascribe myself to. I think that's the one I mostly identify myself with. Besides all the other philosophies or religions there, whether it's Buddhism or Confucianism, I tend to more identify with Taoism. But you find a lot of tenets in Taoism where they talk about withdrawing from the world and not to show your uniqueness in a sense to, make a big deal of yourself. Like, look at me, look at all the knowledge I have, or look at all the wisdom I have. They tend to be more like, no, hide it away. Keep it to yourself and only a few choice others who will be willing to listen, It's all about, walking your path individually, and if there happen to be some other people who are willing to walk that path with you, so be it, but you aren't supposed to seek fame with it. You find that a lot. I've seen this in Taoism, you see this in Buddhism, not necessarily Confucianism. Confucianism is more, I know some people are going to disagree with me on this, but from what I've seen of Confucianism, it's more in line with the whole elitism thing, know your place. It's more like, if you're a peasant, then the hell with it, be a peasant. If you are, an elite person, then you definitely are an elite person. You should strive to be an elite person, try to get the high positions in government, and people should respect you, and just because you happen to have a high status and so on and so forth. Which, if you think about it, is the very things that enlightenment tries to combat, the ego. The whole thing about, just because you happen to have a certain status in society, you're somehow better than others. And I find, people will say that, okay, this is just stuff that's written down in books. Doesn't mean that people necessarily do this in real life. But I have found the people who you and I are talking about, these enlightened souls, they match this criteria. One of the wisest people I've ever met was content working in a warehouse for a bookstore. That's back when I was still living in New York. The guy, I don't know, he's probably still there. And anybody from New York who used to work for the Strand, you know exactly who I'm talking about. And this is a guy who found ways of showing wisdom in just about any mundane thing you can think about. He would talk about the Zen art of working the book wrapping machine, for God's sakes. And talking about, you just find the right balance and you get it perfectly wrapped every time. He always found just little things in life to kind of show you extra things about life. And he and I talked a great deal. I learned quite a lot from him, and I still wish I was able to hang around him these days, but such is life. But he definitely was someone who did not want the spotlight. He was very content, working away, at his job. He made enough money to, to make ends meet and make a living, and he didn't seek the spotlight. He was always a very soft-spoken, quiet type of dude. And meanwhile, you'll find a lot of other people who, the bosses, the people who, let's say, like, run businesses. Like, here's somebody who's working for a business, who has a lot of insight, and many people would consider this guy would be great for, helping to guide everyone. The workers would love working under him and all that, but he wasn't interested in that. But meanwhile, the people who are interested in leading people are the very ones that we can't stand, because the only reason why they want to lead people is not because of any special talent they have for leading or because they want to help society. No, they want to lead people because it's a power trip. The people who desire power and the people who desire to lead are the very people who we have a problem with, because they're not in it for us. They're in it for them. So we have a little bit of a conundrum here. While we may say that, the enlightened ones have some type of social contract to help lead, they don't want to. And the very ones who we think shouldn't lead, and there's plenty of evidence to show that they shouldn't, they do want to, and they go out and seek it, and they get it. And to make matters worse, society as a whole tends to look more toward the flashy than to the subtle. So when some jackass jumps up and down and says, look at me, look how big, what a big deal I am, look how much money I have, look how flashy I am, people go, oh cool, he should be our leader. Because he's flashy. Because he's flamboyant. Because he's a bigger jackass than everyone else. Look at him, he should be our leader. And people fall for that. So it's like a triple trap here. You got the enlightened ones who don't want to lead. Then you got the jackasses who do want to lead and do seek leadership. And then when the people see this, they go toward the jackass because they like how flashy he is, and they ignore the subtle enlightened one who would have a lot more to offer. So, yeah, that's the problem. We can talk about our desires for more enlightened leadership, but we got a few hurdles to go over before we get enlightened leadership, because right now, the way society is structured, the enlightened won't seek it. And worse, the public most likely won't even accept it. Anyway, those are my thoughts at 8:16 in the morning. Thanks again. That was a really good video. I gotta head out now, so take care.